We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Huge landslides in Hualien after Taiwan hit by strongest quake in 25 years. Leaves over 87,000 people without power. Japan, Philippines urge residents to evacuate to higher level areas. World leaders condemn Israeli airstrike on aid workers, calls for a transparent investigation. Israel admits convoy hit unintentionally, promises independent investigation. US President Joe Biden speaks to Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on phone. Talks focus on Taiwan, AI and tech issues. And in Turkey, at least 29 people killed during daytime renovation work at a nightclub in Istanbul. And on to the details now. An earthquake with a magnitude of 7.2 hit Taipei, the capital of Taiwan, on Wednesday morning, killing 4 people and injuring dozens. The Taiwan Central Weather Administration said the epicenter of the quake was in waters off the eastern coastline of Taiwan Island. The quake knocked out power in several parts of the city. The quake was also felt in Shanghai. Meanwhile, Taipei's city government said it has not yet received any reports of major damage. The Chinese state media stated it was felt in Fujian, Xiamen, Guangzhou and Ningde in China's Fujian province. Taipei residents were rattled after the quake. Taiwan's Central Weather Administration said that aftershocks could still be felt in Taipei. More than 25 aftershocks were also registered in the region. The tremors also caused massive landslides in the eastern mountainous county of Hualien. Taiwan's government said that at least 26 buildings have been collapsed, more than half in Hualien, with about 20 people trapped, and rescue work is ongoing. Following the tsunami warnings triggered after a powerful earthquake, Japan has issued an evacuation advisory for the coastal areas of the southern prefecture of Okinawa. Japan's weather department has said that tsunami waves of up to 3 meters were expected to reach large areas of Japan's southwestern coast, while Philippines have also issued a tsunami warning following a strong Taiwan quake. And in view of the earthquake, India-Taipei Association has set up an emergency helpline for assistance, guidance or clarification to all Indian nationals living in Taiwan. India-Taipei Association has also provided a phone number 090-524-7906 and email at ad.ita@meu.gov.in. And moving on, leaders worldwide condemned the deaths of 7 aid workers in an Israeli airstrike in Gaza. British, Australian, Polish, a US-Canadian dual citizen and Palestinian nationals were killed when their convoy was attacked on Monday night. The World Central Kitchen had immediately paused its operations in the region. The White House said it was outraged by an Israeli airstrike in Gaza that killed 7 people working for World Central Kitchen. U.S. National Security Council Coordinator for Strategic Communications John Kirby said that President Joe Biden called the charity aid group's founder to share his condolences.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world. We send our deepest condolences to their families and loved ones. We expect a broader investigation to be conducted and to be done so in a swift and comprehensive manner. We hope that those findings will be made public and that there is appropriate accountability held.
Meanwhile, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Wednesday his country was outraged by the completely unacceptable death of an Australian aid worker in Gaza from an Israeli airstrike. Albanese said he spoke with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu and conveyed Australia's anger and concern at the death of aid worker Zomi Francom.
I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning with a phone call that was organised overnight. I expressed Australia's anger and concern at the death of Zomi Francom. This is completely unacceptable. The Israeli government has accepted responsibility for this, and Prime Minister Netanyahu conveyed his condolences to the family of Zomi Francom and to Australia as a result of this tragedy.
Also, Britain on Tuesday summoned the Israeli ambassador over the deaths of aid workers in Gaza. Foreign Secretary David Cameron posted on social media platform X that he had spoken with his Israeli counterpart Israel Katz to underline that the deaths were completely unacceptable. He added Israel must urgently explain how this happened and make major changes to ensure safety of aid workers on the ground. Well, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said that Israeli strikes on World Central Kitchen aid workers was devastating. Speaking at a session in United Nations General Assembly, the UN chief said that the attacks on aid workers in Gaza were unconscionable.
The devastating Israeli airstrikes that killed World Central Kitchen personnel yesterday bring the number of aid workers killed in this conflict to 196, including more than 175 members of our own UN staff. This is unconscionable, but it is an inevitable result of the way the war is being conducted. It demonstrates yet again the urgent need for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and the expansion of humanitarian aid into Gaza, as the Security Council demanded in its resolution last week. The resolution must be implemented without delay.
Meanwhile, Israeli Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi apologized on Wednesday for the unintentional harm to the members of the World Central Kitchen in Gaza. He said an independent body will carry out a thorough investigation. He added that the findings of the investigation will be shared with the World Central Kitchen and other relevant international organizations.
This incident was a grave mistake. Israel is at a war with Hamas, not with the people of Gaza. We are sorry for the unintentional harm to the members of WCK. We share in the grief of their families as well as the entire World Central Kitchen organization from the bottom of our hearts. An independent body will investigate the incident thoroughly. We will complete it in the next coming days. We will learn from the conclusions and implement them immediately. We will share in full transparency the findings of the investigation with the World Central Kitchen and other international relevant organizations. We see great importance in the continued delivery of humanitarian aid, and we will keep working to facilitate this vital effort.
Also, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu too described the incident as tragic and unintended. He said such accidents happen in wartime.
Unfortunately, in the last day, there was a tragic case of our forces unintentionally hitting innocent people in the Gaza Strip. This happens in wartime. We are thoroughly looking into it, are in contact with the governments, and will do everything to ensure it does not happen again.
The U.S. Secretary of State has held talks with the French president as part of a trip to France and Belgium. The Middle East and Ukraine were the top issues on the agenda. DD India's Ross Cullen reports for more.
Well, Antony Blinken and Emmanuel Macron met on Tuesday. Earlier in the day, Antony Blinken had met his French counterparts, the French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné. And Mr. Séjourné updated Mr. Blinken on his recent trip to China, where he pressed Beijing to use its influence with Moscow to try to bring about an end to the conflict in Ukraine. Earlier on Tuesday, Mr. Blinken toured a weapons factory here in France with the French Defence Minister, saying it was crucial for Western allies to keep up the support for Kiev, particularly providing ammunition to the Ukrainian armed forces. Now, the Middle East was the other major issue for Mr. Blinken and Mr. Macron to discuss on Tuesday, particularly given the ongoing pressure from countries like the United States and France on Israel not to go ahead with its planned offensive in the south of the Gaza Strip around the city of Rafah. Also, the talks between the French president and the United States Secretary of State coming after the killing of Iranian generals in an airstrike believed to have been carried out by Israel inside Syria, and also those talks coming after the deaths of several aid workers after Israeli jets mistakenly targeted the group distributing aid in the Gaza Strip. France has twice this year hosted talks between the United States, Qatar, Egypt and Israel to try to find a deal to release the hostages still being held by Hamas, and also to secure an end to the conflict and discussions of a two-state solution going forward. Now, those talks were held on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the next destination for Mr. Blinken was Brussels, where he will be attending the meeting of NATO foreign ministers. In Paris, Ross Cullen reporting for DD India.
Well, US President Joe Biden and China's President Xi Jinping had their first conversation since November. Both the leaders spoke about Taiwan, AI and regular communication. They also reportedly engaged in tough issues as a way to manage their often rocky relationship. Nick Harper reports for more from Washington.
Well, the White House says it was a candid and constructive discussion lasting about an hour and 45 minutes. And it was an opportunity to build on some of the issues the two leaders discussed when they last spoke back in November at a face-to-face meeting in California. Things like collaboration on climate change, counter-narcotics cooperation, how to counter the spread of fentanyl, and ongoing military-to-military communication. But the White House also made it clear that President Joe Biden raised a number of major concerns that the US has with Beijing. In particular, we're told that Biden pushed Washington's concern about any attempts by Beijing to bring Taiwan under its influence and control. Also, concerns about Chinese military build-up in the South China Sea and perceived aggression towards US allies like the Philippines. And Washington's worries about China's support of Russia in its war against Ukraine. This was a chance to try and diffuse tensions between the two countries that have been rocky for many months. Both leaders, we're told, underscored the value that they see in frequent engagements and the attempt to return to regular phone calls. However, there was no agreement out the back of this call for the two men to meet again face to face. While the White House said it was possible, there was no firm commitment from either side or a firm date. However, in the coming weeks, there will be a series of high-level engagements, with the US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Secretary of State Antony Blinken due to travel to Beijing in the coming weeks. In Washington, Nick Harper, reporting for DD India.
Well, the United States has warned Iran not to retaliate against it for an attack on Iran's embassy compound in Syria on Tuesday, stating it had no prior warning. U.S. Ambassador to the UN Robert Wood said, "We will not hesitate to defend our personnel and repeat our prior warnings to Iran and its proxies not to take advantage of the situation."
We will not hesitate to defend our personnel and repeat our prior warnings to Iran and its proxies not to take advantage of the situation. Again, an attack in which we had no involvement or advanced knowledge to resume their attacks on U.S. personnel. Even as we continue to learn more about this incident, it seems clear that every member of this Council should reiterate that all states, including Iran and Syria, have a responsibility to avoid the path of escalation, to stop arming and advising terrorist groups, and to rein in the actions of proxies who threaten regional peace and security.
Satellite imagery released by Maxa Technologies showed an overview of Damascus after the attack. Well, U.S. National Security spokesman John Kirby on Tuesday said that Iran is helping Russia manufacture drones for use in Ukraine. Kirby also added that the White House was not aware of Iran supplying missiles for use in Ukraine.
I am not aware of specific verification that we can give to Iranian missiles being delivered to Russia for use in Ukraine. They certainly continue to deliver drones and actually helping the Russians manufacture Iranian-designed drones. And we do know that the Russians are and have been using now for quite some time ballistic missiles that they have gotten from North Korea. But I'm not personally aware of any verification that Iranian missiles have been transferred and used.
Also, NATO foreign ministers meet on Wednesday to discuss how to put military support for Ukraine on a long-term footing, including a proposal for a €100 billion 5-year fund and a plan seen as a way to Trump-proof aid for Kyiv. The plans will be discussed during a 2-day meeting in Brussels that will celebrate the 75th anniversary of the founding of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and prepare for a summit of alliance leaders in Washington in July. NATO decisions require consensus among the alliance's 32 members. The meeting comes as NATO is seeking a new leader to succeed Stoltenberg, who has been in post for nearly 10 years. On the other hand, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Tuesday that his country was answering Russian strikes with longer-range responses after a Ukrainian drone attack on an oil refinery 1,300 kilometers from its own borders. In his nightly video address, Zelensky said responses were just as important as helping Ukrainians who were suffering from enemy attacks.
Rescue operations are currently underway in Dnipro after a Russian missile strike. In particular, buildings of a collapse and a kindergarten have been damaged. All services are on site. I thank everyone who is responding, who is going to the strike sites in order to provide assistance to people as quickly as possible. This is the most important thing.
Moving on, North Korea successfully test-fired a new mid- to long-range solid-fuel hypersonic missile on Wednesday. The state-run television KRT released a video of state's leader Kim Jong-un overseeing the launch and lauding it as a strategic weapon that demonstrates the absolute superiority of North Korea's defense technology. As per the state media, Kim said North Korea has fully turned all tactical, operational and strategic-grade missiles of different ranges into solid fuel with warhead control and capable of nuclearization. North Korea fired a suspected intermediate-range ballistic missile into the sea, drawing swift condemnation from South Korea, Japan and the United States. Well, a fire at an Istanbul nightclub during renovations on Tuesday was left at least 29 people dead. The nightclub, which was closed for renovations, was on the ground floor in a 16-story residential building in the Besiktas district on the European side of the city. Firefighting and relevant operations have ended, but there are still rescuers continuing their work at the site. Minister of Justice Yilmaz Tunç announced that a detention warrant had been issued for 5 suspects, including 4 workplace managers and a renovation supervisor. Well, the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo has appointed the country's former Minister of Planning as the Prime Minister. Judith Suminwa is the Central African nation's first female premier. She has taken on the position at a time when an armed conflict has escalated in the east of the country. DD India's correspondent Chris Okamringa has that report.
Judith Suminwa was named the new Prime Minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo, ending weeks of leadership uncertainty in the country. The formation of a new government has dragged on for months after the elections last year. Ms. Suminwa is an economist who worked with the UN before being appointed a minister. Her appointment is the fulfillment of a campaign promise by President Felix Tshisekedi about improving the representation of women in the government. The new premier will be tasked with executing the president's priorities of improving the country's security, uniting the people, and leading them on the path of prosperity. During her acceptance speech, Judith Suminwa promised to work towards peace and development. She has taken over the role as fighting between government forces and the M23 rebels intensifies in the east of the country. The UN and African leaders have called on the warring parties to cease fire and engage in dialogue, but fighting continues. Chris Sochamringa in Kinshasa, reporting for DD India.
Well, Portugal's centre-right Prime Minister Luis Montenegro sworn in as Portugal's new Prime Minister in Lisbon's Ajuda Palace. The Democratic Alliance coalition won on the 10th of March election by a slim margin over the incumbent Socialist Party. With just 80 seats in the 230-seat legislature, the AD will need the support of either the far-right Chega party or the centre-left PS, which secured 78 seats to pass legislation. Chega has demanded a government role or a long-term agreement to support the AD, but Montenegro has repeatedly refused to even negotiate. Montenegro has promised tax reductions for families and companies, higher pensions and wage hikes for police, teachers and the doctors. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday congratulated Luis Montenegro for taking oath as Prime Minister. Portuguese PM Modi posted on social media platform X, and I quote, "Warm congratulations to Mr. Luis Montenegro on being sworn in as the Prime Minister of the Portuguese Republic. Look forward to working together to further strengthen our long-standing bilateral ties," unquote. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Campaigning heats up for the upcoming general elections. Leaders to hold rallies to woo the voters.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on, let's now get you the latest on the world's largest democratic elections in India. Well, ahead of the general election 2024, India's Union Minister and Bharatiya Janata Party leader Amit Shah will hold a public rally in northern city of Muzaffarnagar in Uttar Pradesh today. Later on, Shah will also meet the Lok Sabha core group in Moradabad. The discussions on election strategy and key priorities for the state will likely take the centre stage during the meet. Indian leaders are leaving no stone unturned to campaign for the upcoming elections. Union Defence Minister and BJP leader Rajnath Singh will also hold a public meeting at northern city of Ghaziabad in Uttar Pradesh today. He will also attend the nomination filing event of party's candidate Atul Garg. BJP President JP Nadda will address two public rallies in Uttarakhand today. Following his campaign, he'll meet with the Saint Society in the city of Haridwar on Thursday. Nadda's rally comes a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the state. BJP candidate and lower house Speaker Om Birla will file his nominations today. He's contesting from northwestern state of Rajasthan's parliamentary constituency, Kota Bundi. Also, Congress party leader Rahul Gandhi will file his nomination papers for Wayanad Lok Sabha seat in southern state of Kerala today, seeking re-election. Before filing of his nomination, the Congress leader will hold a roadshow in his constituency. Rashtriya Janata Dal's candidate Bhima Bharti will file a nomination from the high-profile Purnia seat of eastern state of Bihar today, whereas Congress leader Pappu Yadav will also file his nomination from this seat on Thursday. Well, moving on, India's Minister of Health and Family Welfare, Mansukh Mandavia, will chair a meeting with various stakeholder agencies on Wednesday to review preparedness to tackle heat-related illness due to heat waves. The meeting will be attended by several officials from Niti Aayog, Indian Council of Medical Research, All India Institute of Medical Sciences for the action plan for upcoming summer season. India's meteorological department said that most parts of the country are likely to witness above normal maximum temperatures during April to June, with 10 to 20 days of heat waves expected in different parts of the country. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. Australian Navy Chief Vice Admiral Mark Hammond is on a visit to India. He paid tributes to martyrs as he laid wreath at National War Memorial in Delhi. He also received a Guard of Honour ceremony. Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Thai Navy Admiral Adung Pan Yam is also on India visit. The Thai Admiral also paid tributes to martyrs as he laid wreath at National War Memorial in Delhi. He was also given a Guard of Honour. Moving on to some sports news now. India's star weightlifter Bindya Rani Devi bagged bronze medal at the IWF World Cup 2024 in Phuket on Tuesday. Bindya Rani lifted a total of 196 kgs to finish third in the standings. Her efforts fell short of a silver medal of 203 kg at the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham. Korea's Kang Hyun-kyung won the gold medal with a lift of 234 kg, while Romania's Mihaela Kembai took home silver with the personal best of 201 kg. Bindya Rani and Mirabai Chanu are the only Indians competing in the IWF World Cup 2024, which concludes on the 11th of April. And India commemorates Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw's birth anniversary today and celebrates his valour, leadership and strategic genius. His legacy as the first Field Marshal and strategic mastermind in war inspires future generations with exemplary military leadership. Sam's strategic prowess was crucial in orchestrating India's victory in the 1971 Indo-Pakistan War, leading to the creation of Bangladesh. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Vipakshi Kurana. For more of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.